let's talk preview of some games. And I'm going to start with the game I'm going to, and it's going to be at Howell. It's going to be Southern Regional at Howell. And last week I projected that this game would make sure that somebody's in and somebody's out. Now, the state playoff things came out, and it could be wrong. Both teams possibly could make the state playoffs, but whatever it is, it's teams on the border. It's on the border.
Yeah, you don't, put it this way. You don't want to be on the losing end of that and then be holding your breath that maybe you didn't make it, Yeah. So take care of business, get the win, and you won't have to sweat it whether you're right on that razor's edge or not. And again, we broke down all the divisions and we've shown that's done. So to me, this is kind of the big things that are going on now are you in the playoffs or are you out? And Howell coming off a loss, to Colts Neck in a hard-fought game. And it's two different styles, right? The triple option running of Southern that has struggled to score some points.
I like
the aerial attack of Howell.
I'm very intrigued because Howell, with their, from left to right with all their big receivers and their potential offense and Southern stingy defense. Southern on the road. You never count out Southern because when Southern is being counted out, they win. They beat Long Branch on their resume, huge win. But this would be a big win that would solidify them. I would say like a 6 seed in the South Jersey Group 5. They're not going to be a 5 or 4. I could be wrong, but I just kind of think that this would solidify a 6 seed. Okay, maybe 5. But Howell, too, if they win this game, maybe they can be a 5. Maybe they can be a 5 in that tough bracket there. But I'm excited about this game. It could go either way. I could see it going either way.
It's interesting, too, because, Manahawk and Stafford and Howell are kind of like similar towns, like similar type schools, gritty, hard-nosed kids.
Yep.
Like I feel like that will be a good matchup. But, again, and just a total differing of styles between Southern running the ball and Howell trying to make big plays downfield. And I got to say, after seeing Howell again last weekend, Damian Padilla is one of the most physical, just beast mode receivers in the shore. Every time he caught the ball for Howell, like coming across the middle, it took like 4 guys to bring him to the ground.
Well, he was my number one ranked. He was my number one rated tight end in the class of 2023. He looks like Hernandez from the Patriots, doesn't he? The way he maneuvers and
Are you really bringing up convicted murderers?
No, not the off-field stuff. The upfield. You know what I'm talking about with that. Right. That'd be a big game. What other games do you like out there?
I do like in Middletown North. I felt like maybe the luster came off this one a little bit because they lost to Long Branch, but them playing Ocean has been in control of their division all year and hasn't really, been pushed too hard, by teams. I'm interested to see how Middletown North can bounce back. Can they slow down Tyler Douglas? How good is Ocean, I guess, outside of their division with that kind of win? I mean, Ocean does have a nice win over Raritan, who we just saw pick up a good win. So, Ocean, I think is, again, it's just like want to see them tested more and more at a higher level as they get into the playoffs and to see, Tyler Douglas, can he keep putting up these ridiculous performances?
Can Jack Lopez and Peter Dempsey get to Tyler Douglas or discourage some balls being thrown in their RPOs? That's going to be a thing I'm going to be looking at big time.
And can they bracket him enough that maybe he at least you turn him into just a drop back passer and try to take away some of the running ability? Easier said than done, obviously. The
one thing about Steve Bush is when you count him out too, he comes out with these new game plans and surprises people. He's a lot like we said Corey Davies and all that too. So Middletown North
this week is all about non-divisional games. So this is like a couple of weeks ago where you're trying to see the relative strengths of divisions. And now another game that's intriguing to me, Shore Regional, who we talk about, already clinched a division title in that Patriot division. They're going to play, a perennial Group 2 power, Manasquan, that's kind of got their mojo back with Brett Patton back in the lineup, a couple of lopsided victories. How do you see that game coming out?
I see Shore coming in with a chip on their shoulder, playing a traditional team, Manasquan, at Manasquan too. Shore wants to see where they're at. I think they want to prove to people, hey, we're not just good in our division. We're good overall. Manasquan put themselves in a deficit, 0-3, and now they're starting to kind of roll a little bit. Patton's healthy. Jamar Howard, Dettinger had a big game last week. So this is a big game for Manasquan as well as Shore. So it would be exciting to be there at Manasquan.
Yeah, I think this is just a great test of, Shore's a perennial Group 1 power. Manasquan a perennial Group 2, sometimes 3 power. So, it's two schools with great tradition going against each other. And, Shore's strength is up front, right? They bulldoze you at the line of scrimmage with the wing T. Can Manasquan match that? And can Manasquan hit them with big plays? I don't think Shore has seen a quarterback that can throw the ball as well as Patton has, and has many, and a guy as explosive as Howard is. So yeah, I
he
think
spreads the ball out. I mean, last year he had Mizako. He's splitting the ball up to many different guys right now. Shore, I think
that's when Shore's offense is working its best.
Yeah.
It's when 3 or 4 guys each have like 500 or 600 yards rushing.
Kaz likes these type of teams. He wants people to know, hey, we are still winning with tradition guys in our program and all that. But Manasquan's got some star-level guys, Patton, Jameer Howard, Detlinger. Those guys are dudes, and that's going to be a tough game for sure to beat them at Manasquan.
Yeah, it's hard to get a win on that field for anybody. And another game that's interesting as far as a small school team that won a division title, testing itself on a bigger level. We got Matawan going to Middletown South. Middletown South has emerged as, I guess you would say, the best public school team in the Powerhouse American division.
Yeah.
Matawan got, a division championship, or at least, has already clinched a tie for it, can win the whole thing. But this is a big step up in competition for them.
Yeah, they're very athletic. Matawan, Amir Martinez, Wellman Chromes, the freshman that's out there. Don't forget about Cameron Coop. They got some athletes. I said they were a year away, but right now they're 5-1. And I know you don't want to say playing with house money, but they're 5-1. They have a big offensive line up front. I think Matawan wants to say, how far along are we ready for the playoffs? Because Middletown South, there isn't going to be too many teams that they're going to play in the state playoffs like a Middletown South. So that's going to be huge. And Middletown South is powerful, and they empower you with their strength. Their O-line last week, they're physical. I love Jake Zawackel. I do. Donovan Sumney at tailback, and don't forget Colin Gallagher. So they got an uphill battle a little bit.
Right. I think it'll be interesting because Matawan has thrown the ball pretty well this year. They've had some big explosive downfield plays, but Jim Zokiel, the Middletown, we all know him as the quarterback. He had 2 picks last week. He's one of the best defensive backs in the Shore Conference. So I think that's a nice matchup with him lurking back there against their passing game.
Yeah, I'm excited to see who wins that game. And then also Donovan Catholic at Jackson. Interesting. Jackson is embracing this game. They want to play in this game. They want to see where they stand. They're 5-1, and they're back. Last year they were injury riddled, 3-6. Donovan Catholic is a 4-2 team. After they lost to Red Bank Catholic, they're kind of, they want to go out there and prove to everybody we are a legit team, and we are going to compete in the tough non-public A. So I'm interested. 2 Ocean County Powers playing right now at Jackson and at Jackson too.
Yeah, I'm interested in this game on a couple levels. And you're a former public school coach. So some schools, some programs are like, we don't want to play these non-public teams. It's not even fair. They're loaded with all these guys. Yeah. Other guys, like I remember former Long Branch coach Dan George, hey, we want to play RBC. We want to play VNA. My players want to test themselves against these guys. They want to get film against the other top recruits in the area. Where did you stand on, as far as these games when you're a public playing a non-public?
I didn't want to play them. I'm not going to lie. I didn't want to play them. No, but it's tough. I mean, Donovan Catholic's got to
especially because, let's be honest. What's one of the towns where Donovan Catholic draws players from? Jackson.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure that's part of an undercurrent to whenever these things too. You're playing these teams and you're like, is one of the better players in Jackson thinking about going there or going to Donovan Catholic or, the youth players, things like that. But yeah, I think this is a great test for Jackson Memorial because they're not going to see many better teams than Donovan in their playoff run either. So in a way, as far as a tune-up for the postseason, this is a pretty stiff test. Can you slow down their run game? Can you score on them? Their defense is excellent.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, Jackson's going to get the multiplier either way, either the low end or the high end. So they got nothing to lose in terms of the competitiveness with that. I'm interested to see them compete against Donovan Catholic because they are playing good football this year. They really are.
Right. I mean, and they did bounce back from their one tough loss. Ty Mann's been having a real nice season at quarterback for them. How do you do against, one of the best defenses in the short conference?
It's funny. We were both at that game, Donovan Catholic at RBC. Score-wise, they only lost by 7. And we're not even talking about like that might be their toughest game, only by 7.
Now, granted, they had the tough loss to St. Joe Montvale, but St. Joe Montvale is a top 5 team in the state and a perennial powerhouse. So that, you can't draw a ton of conclusions from that.
How quickly some people...
you're right. You act like Donovan is this distant, behind these teams. They've been in our top 3 all year. They've clearly been one of the best teams in the short conference. So
they played RBC.
You don't want to downgrade them.
They played RBC at RBC and lost by 7. Now, physically, they were getting beat up a little bit and all that, but they were very tough in the red zone. And they made a special teams play, and they lost by 7.
Well, I think the thing with them, too, is you look at how young they are, and you're like, that team could be a real power in the coming years, with all that firepower they have coming back at kids that are freshmen, sophomores, making massive impact for them. Yeah, so I mean, and again, with Jackson, you're just trying to test yourself against one of the best here.
I don't have this stat for you, but when was the last time they lost to a public school? Donovan Catholic. Oh, was it? Probably was Wall.
Oh, no, last year did Rumson beat them in that whole triangle?
They did. They
beat RBC. RBC beat Rumson. Rumson beat Donovan.
You're right. They did. To Toms River North playing at Toms River East. Traditional rival game. I think it's a big mismatch at Toms River North.
Yeah, I think this is another game where, Toms River North could be in the 50s, high 40s, and it's just not going to be that competitive. Another game where North's not really going to be tested as we get closer and closer to the postseason.
How about this one? I mean, again, am I a little biased? But it's Barnegat is at home, homecoming. They're 3-3. Stop smiling. Point Borough comes in, number 4, 6-0, rolling. I know they're heavy favorite, but what I think is going to happen with Point Borough is this. Point Borough has not been challenged, but they're going to be playing in a hostile environment. And I'm going to say that's huge because now you're a state playoff type of team and you're going to play with a rowdy crowd. They can feed off it. I think that's going to be an atmosphere for Point Borough they're going to like. So, but I mean, Barnegat's 3-3. A little, Point Borough is definitely the big favorite, but Point Borough might like that environment. Sometimes it's so crazy at Barnegat that I always said that the other team loved playing there more than us. This is incredible. There's 5,000 people here.
Well, it gets you ready too for that playoff atmosphere. Yes. That's what. But if Point Borough has their way, that crowd will be fairly silent by halftime. I would say. Unfortunately,
well, Jay Croce, Ciliento. We're going to read stats. 3 carries for how many? They're so efficient in everything they're doing. It's like their yards per carry are 12.7, 11.6. You know what that tells me? Their line's pretty good.
Oh yeah. And not only that they're so hard to defend because you have to defend, 3-4 different really talented running backs who can take it the distance on any play, which, how rare is it when you're running the triple option that you have basically a game breaker no matter who has the ball? Whether they pitch it, whether they give it to the fullback, whether the quarterback keeps it, all 3 of those guys can go the distance on any play. So that's really tough to stop.
The old Oklahoma teams. Rumson, the number 7 ranked team, is playing Friel Borough. I kind of think that's going to be a big mismatch. I mean, Rumson is going to start showing that and getting ready for the state playoffs where they're going to be a 1 or 2 seed when all things fall out. But Friel Borough is having a tough time this year. It's just one of those years.
Well, not only are they winless, their schedule is merciless. I feel like they've played every team in our top 10, it seems like.
Right. Colts Neck, the number 8th ranked team, playing Wall, who's over. We talked about this earlier. I mean, your Wall, your Eddie Guerreri, he has a staff from Manalapan that they won in the past. I just think that Wall's a scary team for Colts Neck.
I know it's crazy to say that a team that's winless is a potential landmine of a game, but that's really the way you could look at it. I mean, they match up pretty well with Colts Neck.
Physically,
Colts Neck's going to try to pound the ball, running, pound you with the run game. Colts Neck's run defense is Wall's run defense is pretty solid, and they've already seen some of the best backs in the shore playing in that division.
Yeah.
And their strength of schedule has them kind of hanging around for the playoffs. And you said they knew 2 wins, correct? And they have Colts Neck and Manalapan left. So this is it. This is the backs against the wall game for them. No pun intended.
Wall's good in the box with their run offense and a run defense.
But their offense has struggled. And Colts Neck's defense has been very good. So I think that's really the other area. You got to find a way to generate some offense against a very solid Colts Neck defense.
Raritan coming off a big win, number 9th ranked team playing home against Tom River South, who's struggling this year. It's going to be a big lopsided type of game, possibly. But Raritan's rolling. I see them going 6-2 by the cutoff and being that number 2 seed in one of the Group 2 sections right there, right?
Yeah, I mean, they just had Point Borough, Ocean, Vianney, back to back to back. I mean, that's a really tough stretch for any team, and they emerged 1-2, which is solid given the caliber of their opponents. So now they're going to be – they've been the underdog 3 games in a row. Now they're going to be the favorite here in their last 2 games. And, this is where you can't get complacent. You build momentum for, the state playoffs because they're going to be back to underdog status in the state playoffs with Point Borough and Rumson and other teams lurking out there. So, this is just
now Marlboro
for them to kind of get a little bit more of the ball.
Yeah, now Marlboro limps into Manalapan, who's the 11th ranked team in the shore. I mean, give Coach Tagato a lot of credit. They're hanging tough by defense. They're running the football, but they're just falling short. Playing a Manalapan team that's 3-4, got done with their 2 parochials. Now they can start breathing and say, let's live off these power points and let's start winning a little bit. Manalapan needs this win. Marlboro needs this win. If Marlboro wins, I think they're guaranteed being in the state playoffs. If they don't, a lot's got to happen. And Manalapan, if they win this game, could help them maybe be in a home game, like a 4 seed potentially with that.
And
so
they've historically dominated this series. I mean, Manalapan has had the upper hand on Marlboro for a long, long time. And
yes.
The one thing, though, is Manalapan hasn't been scoring a ton of points. So if Marlboro can hang around into the 4th quarter and generate some offense against a really, really good Manalapan defense, you never know what could happen. But, Manalapan has certainly had the upper hand, and Marlboro's doing the best they can with a banged-up team.
Friel Township, number 17, going to play at Manchester, 2-4. Friel Township is rolling. They're excited. I think it was 4 times they only made the state playoffs.
Yeah.
Friel Township. So they got a lot to look forward to right now because they're very appreciative of being 4-3. They're very excited 4-3. Some teams are 4-3 and they're like, oh, this is terrible. They're excited that they're 4-3 because they're sniffing the playoffs and they haven't been there in a while.
Yeah, and and they have a great fan base, like their students, the good support at that school, and for them to get a postseason game is a big deal. And they'd certainly just got to go handle their business against Manchester.
So here's a rivalry: Neptune at Long Branch. They've had a long history of some great games and finishes and all that. Long Branch needs this game. Neptune kind of struggling, but then they surprise people and then they fall short. They have some athletes there, and they're hungry to get that win against Long Branch.
Yeah, they've been all over the place a little bit. Long Branch coming off a loss. I mean, Neptune winless, so Green Wave the Green Wave coming off a big win.
Yeah.
Just trying to keep things going there. And you also look at 2 old school Ocean County powers, Brick at Lacey. That's another game where Lacey's been really struggling to get any wins this year. Brick trying to keep their state playoff hopes going. They have to have that one.
Yeah, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, you're paused. Yeah, that's scary for Brick. Brick needs this to win. I know they're really down in power points. I didn't really break it down, but I think that they got to definitely beat Lacey and beat Brick Memorial to kind of hopefully have a snowball chance there. But Lacey Township's a team that all of a sudden can say, hey, we're going to play Lacey football and be very competitive and tough for that game right there. Central's been down this year. They're playing home against Brick Memorial with Connor Dietz. And, I mean, talk about Madden football stats. Him and Tyler Douglas in that division. But Connor Dietz is just fantastic with his numbers. He just does it all. Any big play, his fingerprints are all over the football right there.
Well, absolutely. And then you have another winless team, Homedale, playing at Red Bank Regional, which has actually been playing really well lately, and trying to keep themselves, in line for a state playoff berth.
Yeah, Red Bank needs this win, and hopefully they keep going at it. So they have a big game the next week against Ocean Township. Pinelands at Monmouth, two competitive type game. That's a competitive game. Both teams need this. Pinelands needs to get to 500 with a win. They are 500 right now, but they've lost 3 games by 10 points. If they could beat Monmouth, they can kind of put this into a very interesting season for John Tierney.
Yeah, I mean, you think about how late in the season has Pinelands been over 500 at this point a lot of times in their history. So that for Coach John Tierney, that would be saying, hey, we're really building something. This is not the same old Pinelands.
Jackson, Liberty, Point Beach are playing each other. Both are 2-4, and they're teams that you really kind of you pull for. The kids, they haven't been winning the last couple of years, both programs, but they come up with surprising games here or there. So somebody's going to win this game right here. Those guys play so hard for Coach Saccone. They really do. The smallest school in the shore.
That's what I mean. I think this is always just interesting as a really small Group 1 school testing themselves against a bigger program. We'll see how that one shakes out. And then speaking of the small schools, we have the old school rivalry, the small school rivalry, Kingsburg at Keyport. Kingsburg didn't even have a game last week because of the whole situation with Asbury. So they've had a couple weeks for this one. Keyport coming off a very emotional game because of the injury to Logan Blank. So, that's Keyport certainly, I would say, the favorite in this one, but that's a good, old school Bayshore rivalry.
Yep. Keyport is on a roll, and I think that they'll do some damage in the state playoffs. I like to see Kingsburg, like any other team, win at least one game. I mean, you work hard all summer. You have a couple key injuries, and then things fall out. Group 1s are tough to recover with injuries, are really tough. And the last game, Asbury Park, I predict they will eventually play another game against Lakewood, and Asbury's picture an Asbury kid. He wakes up the day of a game, doesn't know if the game's still going on. All right? I mean, how do you trust anything? Because they didn't know until the end. So Lakewood having a tough season at 1-5. Asbury Park coming in 2-2 with high expectations, but, really nothing to show for it right now.
It's a good crossover game, though. It's funny that whenever I see that, I'm like, that would be an excellent basketball game. That's like a basketball rivalry from way back of two traditional teams. But yeah, again, what are we going to see out of Asbury coming into this game? Lakewood too. That we'll see who comes out of it. I just hope for Asbury's sake that they have the game and both teams can get their shot to get a win, and there's no more of the off the field stuff that comes into complicating, just letting the kids get out there and play. That says it all for week 7 games, but I'm going to end it right here. I'm excited about not just the state playoffs. I'm excited about the constellations, because what's going to happen is everybody's going to play competitive games at the end. And even if you don't make the state playoffs, you could play competitive games to lead you into the off season feeling good about yourselves. Because there's nothing. I always think that those games are the ultimate test of character of your team and of your players. Do they still care if you get matched up with a team that's not your rival or you don't have anything particularly in common with them? Are you still going to get up for that game? Are you still going to play hard? Do you still care enough about your teammates to go out there and give 100% effort? The craziest thing is over the years, you usually see some of the wildest statistical performances of the year in those crossover games.
There's a reason for that.
Like a running back who will have had 500 yards rushing the whole year will have like 250 in one of those games.
You know what? Offensive coordinators, not a lot of pressure on them. I'm going to do what I would have wanted done during the season, but didn't have the guts to do it. So we're going to do it. People are going for it on their own territory. It's crazy.
I think the scouting is not extensive. It's not like when you're scouting a playoff opponent and you're getting every little film. You're just saying, hey, it's an extra game. Let's just go out there and let it fly. But if you don't have a good game plan to maybe stop a certain guy, I just always remember when the stats would get called in from them, you'd be like, this kid did what? I feel like 10 school records or something get set every year in these crossover games.
Or you
because
don't
players are
scout. You
going
don't
crazy.
scout constellation games. You don't, because you don't know who you're playing. So
Right.
it's kind of you're handed the film. Go, okay, where you're actually watching these other teams when you're playing them during the season. So that's one big thing too. But you're right. Listen, these kids are just a couple years removed from COVID. And at that point, everybody said, oh, I wish we could just play football. I don't care about who wins or losses. Now you get to the season right now, 2 years later, that if you're losing, I'm done with football. I don't get it. It's the game of football. Love and respect the game of football because it can be taken away so quickly, or you graduate and it's done. So who cares what your record is? Just win the day, win the week, have fun, play with your brothers, and let the ball fall wherever it goes.
You sound like a coach. Have you ever done any coaching, any inspirational speaking before?
Unemployed, coach. Oh, they're always the smartest ones. All right, guys, thanks for coming on the show. Make sure you check in. And also, we didn't say it, but you got to subscribe to our YouTube.